All right. So again, very thankful to have Mr. McMurtry here with us, Tim McMurtry, Tim McMurtry International. Tim and I have been good friends for a few years now, done business together, are still working together to accomplish our goals and our dreams and aspirations. And we're thankful to have him here to share his experience here in the city of Milwaukee and around the world, how his path to success. So Tim, thank you again for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
No problem. Could you tell us your first and last name, please?
Sure. Timothy L. McMurtry the second. You can call me Tim.
No worries, no worries. And born here in the city of Milwaukee.
Yes, sir. Born and raised, native son.
Okay, very good, very good. And then, what part of Milwaukee did you grow up?
The early part of my life, from probably birth to about 6 years old or so, we were living on Second and Brown. At which time my parents then moved out to 30th and Good Hope Road, just a stone's throw from Brown Deer, kind of nestled between Brown Deer and Glendale. And that's where I spent the majority of the rest of my life.
Very good. And then grade school, middle school?
Grade school, I went to Hawthorne Elementary School, MPS up through 7th grade, Hawthorne Elementary School from kindergarten through 6th grade, John Burroughs Middle School, 7th grade. 8th grade, I went out to Whitman Middle School, which is the feeder school for Wauwatosa West High School. Longfellow is the feeder school to Wauwatosa East. Went out there as part of the Chapter 220 program, which was an exchange of city students out to suburban schools and suburban students out to city schools. And the idea there was to really help, accelerate the racial integration in the schools. The Brown versus Board of Education edict that came down from the Supreme Court in 1954 stated that separate but equal is unconstitutional. And up until that time, there was strict enforcement of black students only being able to go to schools that are predominantly black and white, or all black for that matter, and white students only able to go to schools that were all white. And so the Supreme Court took that up with Brown versus the Board of Education, struck that down, and put forth an edict that schools ought to be integrated with the races. Well, a place like Milwaukee did not necessarily adhere to that Supreme Court ruling, and it wasn't until 1976, a full 22 years later, that Milwaukee's schools were ruled and enforced to integrate. And about maybe a decade or so after that, about a good 10 years or so, circa 84, 85, Milwaukee came up with the Chapter 220 program along with its suburban counterparts saying, well, hey, can we kind of play nice in the sandlot? And what we'll do is we will send or allow students in the city of Milwaukee, their parents, to, kind of search around in the suburbs to see if there's a school out there that they like, and they can send their schools there. And in exchange, we will go ahead and allow you suburban, students and parents to bring your students to the city schools. And they work through all of the different mechanizations that go into, funding for how much money per student and all that kind of stuff. They did that, but the idea behind it was to have integration in such a way that did not require the, federal troops, the armed guards, National Guard to come in and enforce that kind of integration. And so for me, we didn't have that many blacks at Wauwatosa West at the time. It was 14 blacks in my graduating class. I think Wauwatosa West is a bit more integrated now than it was when I was there, but I still had a great time. I played 3 sports, carried a 3-point average, met a lot of folks, and I think that it also helped me to be able to effectively interact, communicate, engage folks of other races as well. As a youngster, that paid off and has been paying off a lot in my adult life, because many of the spaces that I roll in now, they're not always a whole lot of, black people, period. And sometimes I'm even the only chocolate chip in the batter, So having had that experience, there's not an uncomfortability around white folks or anybody else, because I was forced to, learn how to swim in those kind of environments, in high school. And having played, like I said, 3 sports, football, basketball, and track, it was pretty successful for me. I had a good time. My years at Wauwatosa West were some of the best years of my life. And also, I set 3 records in football: the longest yards from scrimmage, longest run from scrimmage, 98 yards, most catches in the game, 13, most yards receiving in the game, 154, and was also the first black in the school's history to be homecoming king. So before Obama, you had Tim McMurtry. So you got that piece. And the thing about that is I was a write-in candidate. So I want to just encourage the young people, today, that you don't have to look to the outside for anybody to validate your value and what you bring to the table. You have to know within yourself that you are valuable, that you are the best in class wherever you are. And so when we were in homeroom and we got the listing of potential candidates for Homecoming King, I didn't see my name on the list. Now, 3 guys that were there, I knew them, played sports with them, were friends with them, cool guys. But to me, they weren't more deserving than me of the Homecoming King. I thought I was the best thing at the school, and I wrote my name down. So when people ask, well, hey, Tim, who you going to vote for Homecoming King? I said, I'm voting for myself. And they said, well, your name isn't on the ballot. Well, my name is on the ballot now because I just wrote it on there, and ended up winning, the Homecoming King spot. So that says 2 things. Number one, you have to believe in yourself first, even when nobody else is believing in you. Number 2, the confidence that you exude in believing in yourself becomes attractive to other people, and they can rally behind you. There's a distinction between confidence and arrogance. Arrogance is you walking around thinking that you are better than everybody else. Now, that, it ain't that cool. You don't have to think you're better than anybody else. But confidence, on the other hand, lets you also walk around knowing that nobody else is better than you. So there is a fine line between the two, and I would say ride the lane of confidence because it'll take you far. Number one, it'll help you to believe in your ability to achieve everything you want to do, be, and have. Number 2, other people see that and they're attracted to it, and they want to come on your team to give you support to do and accomplish all those things that you want to do, to be, and to have. But it starts with you first. You can't walk around with your head down thinking, woe is me and all that. Kill that noise immediately. You have to walk in saying, hey, I got this. This is what I want. This is what I'm going after, and I'm going to get it. That's the attitude you have to have in every room that you walk in. And when you have that kind of aura and presence about yourself, as you do it consistently, you grow in your belief. It becomes second nature to you. And number 2, people are attracted to you because of that.
That's beautiful, man. That's beautiful. And what were the other 2 sports that you played? Because many of the kids now just focus on one sport. We encourage them to play as many as possible to help them develop, as an athlete.
Yeah, football, basketball, and track and field. As a matter of fact, on the sandlot tip, we also played baseball as well. So I was really a 4-sporter, only 3 sports, after school, because some of the seasons kind of were concurrent, and you couldn't play more than one if they had, 2 of them going on at the same time.
Right. Okay, that's understandable. Well, that's fantastic. So graduated from Wauwatosa West. What happened after that? Did you go to college? What was the next step?
Yeah, after that, man, I went to Hampton University in Hampton, Virginia. And I'm just going to kind of get back on like the whole race piece. Not only did we have to have this, kind of forced integration at the schools, there were, Milwaukee kind of has a general history of racial polarity between the races, primarily blacks and whites. We had what we call sunset cities. Those were cities where at 5:30 or when the sun went down, Black people had to get out of that town or else they risked bodily harm. So Milwaukee has had a long dance with racial disharmony. And we are looking to bring those things back. As a matter of fact, my time in Wauwatosa West, which was in, the late 80s, that was the first time in our history pretty much that Black students and white students were able to hang out and vibe, and it wasn't forced. I remember we had football 2-a-day practices, and the school was in Wauwatosa, right on 124th and Center, and I lived on 30th and Good Hope Road. I mean, clear across town. I was 3 city buses away: the 12, the 30, and the 60. And I remember the 2-a-days. The first one would be at 6:30 or 7 in the morning practice, and you had an afternoon practice at 2 o'clock or so. So instead of me having to come all the way home, I would go to the crib with some of my white teammates.
Yeah.
And we'd hang out, you know what I'm saying, and kick it. And we got a chance to establish relationships. And what I discovered there was if you can establish relationship with somebody, you can meet them on a human to human level. And some of the artificial race divisions tend to fall away because you begin to find out that there are way more similarities between you two than there are differences. As a matter of fact, other than the hue of the skin, pigmentation, or in our case, the melanation, we tend to like the same thing. You like 75-degree days? I do too. You like ice cream? I do too. You like pizza? I do too. You like cheeseburgers? I do too. You know what I'm saying? So all the stuff you like, Joker, having a good time, kicking it, going on vacation, guess what? Me too.
Right.
I mean, so because the race piece has been so domestically terrorizingly enforced with, different bands and different, Ku Klux Klan and different just groups that would do different things that would forge this division. Some of the division still exists, not because it can't be overcome, but because there was so much proactive violence used to enforce it. For example, there was a guy by the name of Father Grappi, who's a legend in the city of Milwaukee. He was a white Catholic priest here in Milwaukee. He worked with black people on the legislation trying to get fair housing. Belle Phillips, one of the most storied figures in the state of Wisconsin history. She was the first black statewide elected official in the state of Wisconsin. I think she was either Secretary of State or State Treasurer. Went on to be a noted alderwoman. I mean, just a fantastic, wonderful, wonderful lady. She led the charge in City Hall back in the 60s, not the 1920s. I mean, this is fairly recent history. In the 1960s, for black people to have fair housing, meaning if I make a certain amount of money and I can afford to live in a certain place, don't stop me from living there just because I'm black.
That's right.
And her and Father Grappi and other folks that were part of the movement led marches for, I think, 200 days and change, night after night, just marching for legislation for fair housing. When Belle Phillips was an alderwoman, she put forth the legislation before her colleagues in the Common Council at that time, I think 18 different times, and it was struck down. I believe on the 19th time, they approved it. I bring that up to say that there was a guy when I worked at City Hall. I'm a former chief of staff to a former city council president. When I worked in city government, there was a guy who was a manager of the license division, and he and I, his name was Mr. Jim Copeland was his name. He and I were talking one day about some similar matters, and he shared with me that he had a friend who was a sheriff back in those days when those marches were taking place. And he said, well, Tim, when I was talking to my sheriff friend, he told me that the biggest challenge that they had as law enforcement wasn't trying to stop black people from, marching into white neighborhoods over like the 16th Street Viaduct and all that kind of stuff, but it was keeping the white residents from attacking the protesters with extreme violence, baseball bats, bricks, stories of people throwing feces at the protesters. I mean, just inhumane stuff. I say all of that to say that when you are a black person swimming in a white world, there's this term called assimilation. You find yourself often having to show yourself as not a threat to white folks because you have been characterized, particularly as a black male, as a thug or this. You got to watch out for yourself. When the fact of the matter is, most of the things that have been done as far as violence, there's been way more white on black violence throughout the years, from slavery to lynchings to beatings to police brutality, the whole George Floyd situation, to cross burnings in people's yards, the 4 little girls that were bombed at the church, Dylan Roof walking into that South Carolina church, killing up 9 black people in church who was praying. We don't go out to white people stuff and kill them up. They've had a history of killing up. Jeffrey Dahmer was eating up people of color. You know what I'm saying? So in terms of if somebody ought to be cautious around somebody, it ain't y'all got to be cautious around us. Right. We got to be cautious around y'all because most of the bodily harm has been done white to black. That said, me being at Wauwatosa West, there was some assimilation that had to take place. And assimilation is work. I want to be in a place where I can just walk in a room and just can exist. And so because of that, I decided to go to a black college. I put one college application in, and it was to Hampton University in Hampton, Virginia. Wow. It was a predominantly black college. I went to school with, white folks, and, y'all cool and all, but this is work. I'm tired of having to work this hard. I want to go to a place. where black people are, kind of like the Cheers show.
Yeah.
Sometimes you want to go where everybody knows your name. You know what I'm saying? So I needed to go to a place where I can just walk in a room and not stand out.
Right.
I just can walk in a room and just be.
Yes.
And it was one of the greatest experiences of my life going to the HBCU in terms of learning about African American history, learning about the contributions that we've made to society at large, learning about the fact that there is more to us than Dr. Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, Rosa Parks, and Frederick Douglass. We got a whole history. I learned more in the first semester of African American history in my first semester at Hampton than I had into my entire life up to that point. And what it did was it gave me a broader perspective of what it means to be black. The whole slavery piece is not the entirety of our history. It's a knot on the rope of eternity. And because we are, I guess, closest to it in terms of time, it might be the closest in our memory. But the pyramids in Egypt, there was black people that built that. Egypt is in Africa. Despite what people want to say, well, no. It's connected to the continent of Africa. And the lighter skin that you see now is because you had migrations and different things like that, intermarriages, and, miscegenation, mixing the race. But in this arena, if you go back far, the farther you go back, the blacker those people are. So it's interesting that when there's criminal activity or negativity, that seems to be associated with blackness. But when it comes to achievement, people want to discredit black people from achievement. You know what I'm saying? And those days are over with now. So it's time for an awakening. Every other group has their lineage, has their heritage, from our Jewish brothers and sisters to our, Native American brothers and sisters, to people who are Polish, to people who are Italian, I'll come from Sicily or whatever. Yes. Everybody else can own their heritage and can draw from it. But when we look to draw from our heritage, our accomplishments, people tend to, no, you're trying to be xenophobic. No, man. Heritage and drawing from it is a strength to any people.
That's right.
That's where you draw your power and your strength from. Yes. And us looking at the continent of Africa, despite being colonized north, south, east, and west, is the richest landmass in the world, yes, given the iron ore, the gold, the diamond, the natural resources, and given all the plunder that the people have had, not just taking them from there for the slavery piece in America, but Brazil had more people coming from Africa there than any other part of the world. So when you talk about Afro-Latino, yeah, that's African influence on Spanish-speaking people, and that's that African blood in them. People that you see of darker skin hues, that's because they got that melanin from Africa. So when you talk about the contributions of the continent of Africa to the world, there's some that even say that civilization started in Africa. You know what I'm saying? But you don't hear nothing about that. And I think that's some of the challenge that people have in terms of aspirations. Sometimes you need to see more, see higher to aspire to more and higher. So leaving Wauwatosa West, I went to Hampton University because I wanted to be around more blackness and identify with that and be in a space where I didn't have to work as hard just to exist. And it was one of the greatest decisions ever made, the greatest times of my life. I didn't know that at the time we were going through like even musical and cultural renaissances with, music and hip hop was coming of age and really, becoming global. With Hampton being on the East Coast, and excuse me for just blabbering on, but I'm feeling this thing right now. With it being on the East Coast, Virginia is kind of in the middle of being Eastern Seaboard and down south.
Right.
So many of the students came from Philly, Jersey, Baltimore, New York. And on the weekends, because that was just a short drive for them, like from us going from Milwaukee to Chicago or so, or to Indianapolis, they would drive back and forth. And a lot of the people who are now big stars, like Busta Rhymes, he was with this group called Leaders of the New School, Grand Poobah, Q-Tip from Tribe Called Quest, it would be nothing to see them cats walking around campus.
Yes, sir.
You coming back from class with your backpack on, you have to go to the union, you're like, wait a minute. Is that Aaron Hall from Guy? Is that Busta Rhymes?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Oh, my God. Yes, sir. I mean, like, every week.
Yeah.
You see these cats. And so here you are, a kid from Milwaukee, seeing videos, watching Yo MTV Raps or whatever, and you get down to this place and you're seeing the cats you see on videos in person,
Right.
knowing some of the cats that you know at the school because they went to high school together.
Yeah.
They just coming down to visit their homie that they went to high school with. I mean,
Yeah.
so that kind of exposure, man, was just it was phenomenal. It was phenomenal. And they really infused in the students, the professors there, this notion that, Black Lives Matter. It wasn't just a hashtag. It wasn't just a group. It was really, hey, your black body, your black intellect, your black brilliance, your black contributions to society
Yes.
matters.
Right.
And we all need that and need to hear it and need to enforce it every single day.
Yeah, yeah. Well, Hampton. I did go visit there. I thought I was going to get a scholarship for football there. They didn't give me that bread.
Okay.
But I thought it was a beautiful campus, and all those guys that you saw on TV. There's a lot to see at Hampton. It's a beautiful place.
Right.
Beautiful place.
Like some of the prettiest women you gonna see every day in your life. Every day I was there, like like the first month or two, I saw the prettiest girl I ever saw in my life every day.
Every day.
So Monday, I saw the prettiest girl I ever saw in my life. Tuesday, I saw a girl that was prettier than her. Wednesday, I saw a girl that was prettier than both of them.
That's right.
Thursday, it was every day.
Every day.
And that was another thing that really showed me that there's a lot of variety, man, in black. Brown skin, dark skin, light skin, caramel color. I mean, it's like a kaleidoscope, man. It was such a wonderful experience. It showed me that even like, one last anecdote to that, and I'll let you go on with some other questions. But at the time, the Cosby Show was the #1 rated show in America. This is before, Cosby got into, his trouble with the allegations and things like that the women have had, against him. But he was the #1 show. And then A Different World, which was a spinoff from the Cosby Show, which was also set in a black college. Hillman College was the name of the fictitious, school, but it was based on real black colleges. And so I remember talking to some of my, white student friends at Wauwatosa West, and they would say stuff like, "Oh man, the Huxtables, that's fantasy, man. That's just TV. There's no such thing as, a black family that has a black doctor father and a mother that's a lawyer." And I've heard that's been said to my face more than once.
Yes.
I got down to Hampton, and the Huxtables really do exist. It ain't no fantasy.
That's right.
It was kids down there whose mama was a lawyer and their daddy was a doctor.
That's right.
Or their daddy was an executive at IBM and their mama was something else. Or their daddy was a dentist. I mean, it was an immersion. It was almost like a utopia of blackness. And it showed me, it's like, wow, man, there's a whole lot more living going on than what maybe I had been exposed to up until this point. You know what I'm saying? So exposure, I think, is also key for young people. You got to get off the block. You got to get out of just your neighborhood. There's a whole world out here to see. Don't sell yourself short, because not only is there a whole big world out here to see, you have the goods to contribute and thrive in these different areas and different settings.
That's right. So what did you graduate? What was your degree you graduated from Hampton?
I left Hampton and came back here to Milwaukee because of tuition. Like you're talking about the bread. My parents were like, "Look, bruh, you gonna have to come on back." I didn't have a scholarship, either. And so when I came back here, I graduated actually from UW Milwaukee, with a degree in communications.
Okay, very good.
Mm-hmm.
Following graduation, what happened? What was your first job, and then how did that spin off into where you are today?
Well, that's an interesting story, man. My situation kind of it meandered, and what I mean by that is like some kids, go on to school and they graduate in 4 years, and they move the tassel off to the side and throw the hat up in the head, all that kind of stuff. My situation was a little bit different than that. When I went out to Hampton, I was there for like 2 years, came back here, and I didn't go back to school right away. Excuse me. I, fell into some of the things that some of our, students fall into, smoking weed, kicking it, drinking 40 ounces, doing stuff on the block, So I did all that, but I always still had this desire to finish school because I was always, the student, and, college was something that I wanted to, kind of achieve.
So,
And when I was going on job interviews and things like that, and then working in workforce development, you have different stigmas. One of the stigmas is that the way you get to a better life is you have to have a college education. And we found out that that's not true. You just have to have gainful employment or some streams of income. That can be business, that can be trades, that can be, entrepreneurship, many different ways. You just got to have some steady money coming in that's legal, and you're good to go. And so for me, I didn't enroll in school right away, had some other things I was doing. I worked for a little while, et cetera, et cetera. And then I enrolled in school again, but because I was working, I was and paying for school myself. It wasn't on my parents anymore. This was on me. I had to go ahead and find this balance. And so for about a good, I'll say, man, like 7 to 10 years, I was kind of nickel and dime in school, enrolling, taking a couple classes here and there, just still making progress, but it was pretty much baby steps. And so then I ended up getting married, still short of having a degree, not knowing how a married guy, then starting a family, how it was all going to work out. But my life was progressing because life doesn't stop because you got some unfinished business. Life's going to go on, and you still got to keep on rolling too. Or you just going to get, drowned in the deluge of everything that goes on. So short story shorter, I married my wife. I was at the time an electrical engineering major, and my wife said to me in a conversation that we had, it was pretty simple, but it was brilliant. It was profoundly simple and simply profound. She's answering when they say, "Do you like engineering?" And I'm like, "Well, nah, man, I hate it. I got the aptitude for it, but the attitude, the effort that it takes really to jam, I ain't really feeling it." You know what I'm saying? So as a young person, you have to find out who you are, what you like to do, and find out a way to make money doing that, so you can have fulfillment, or what is called convergence. Convergence is when you are in a position to do what you love to do what you get excited to do. You're in a role that allows you to bring your full self to do that, and you get paid to do it. That's what your goal in life, should be. And that's how you can be able to do work for a long time and then not feel like work, because that's what you love to do anyway. You know what I'm saying? So she, gave me this brilliant piece of advice. She said, "I tell you what, why don't you just get a sheet of paper and write down on one side, get a sheet of paper, put a line in the middle, and on one side put down your likes, on the other side your dislikes." Now, I didn't think that had anything to do with me trying to pick what I want to be. She was like, "Well, if you don't like engineering, you need to really find a major that fits who you are as a person, as opposed to you trying to fit into something." Yes. And she's like, "Why did you pick engineering in the first place?" I said, "Well, my guidance counselor, shared with me that, hey, Tim, you're good in math, you're good in science. Why don't you come lecture engineer?" Okay, and that was that. Yes. So I'm the first person in my family to graduate from college. My dad worked at Tower Automotive / A.O. Smith, yes, and my mom worked at Wisconsin Gas before they were absorbed by We Energies. And so, yes, and so we did all that, and so I did this little thing, not knowing how powerful that was going to be. I said, "Write down just anything." She was like, "Yeah, anything." I said, "Well, what about I like chocolate milk?" She was like, "Write that down." I said, What about a turtle sundae with sneaker chunks on top?" She said, "Write all your likes, write them down. What do you dislike?" I'm like, "Well, I don't really like shoveling snow." Okay, write that down. Anyway, so I wrote all this stuff down, and it was therapeutic for me. And I've always loved sports. And so she was like, "What if you could do anything, what would it be?" I said, "If I could just snap my fingers, I would become a sports radio talk show host. You can talk about sports all day and get paid to talk about sports. Man, that would be a dream." She said, "Well, why don't you find a major that fits that?" It was just super practical. I'm like, "Wait a minute, are you serious?" She was like, "Yeah." So I went over to UWM. She said, "Why don't you take a semester off, do some exploration, find out which of the majors that are offered fits you the most, and roll like that." I said, "Okay, cool." So I went there, and they have a mass communications discipline which deals with TV and radio and mass media. But when I went and talked to the dean of students there, they were like, well, hey, Tim, most times people that pursue these careers, they want you to go to a smaller market first and, get some experience. And then, you move to the larger market. So you might have to move to another city, like a Green Bay or something like that. And I'm like, man, I got a family now. I ain't trying to hear all that. Let me try what this communication thing is. I know I want to be able to talk. I want to be able to engage with people because that's me. I'm a talker. I'm a communicator. I'm a people person. I'm a people viber. That's my thing. Let me find some professions that got something to do with that. And when I went to the School of Communication, I remember going to the dean's office, and there was a sign on the door that said, hey, please don't leave. I'm just out trying to grab a quick bite for lunch. Be back in 15 minutes. Stick around. I said, okay, well, that 15 minutes, that ain't really nothing. I can hang out here for 15 minutes. I just made a quick run. And so while I was there was a bulletin board outside the door. And by this time, I had written down about 5 or 6 different professions that interested me. Human resources, government, maybe something in some ministry or something. I mean, something that had to do with some people and outreach and community relations and public relations, that kind of stuff. And this bulletin board, while I was waiting for the dean to come back from the lunch break, the bulletin board said something along the lines of, hey, UWM communication department, it's the place for you. This is, a great place to get your degree, blah, blah, blah. Then it said careers pursued by recent communication grads. And all 6 of the ones that I had listed, there was about 15 or 20 of them, including all 6 of mine. And it was like an angel from heaven said, oh! So I knew right then and there I was in the right place. And so I got the degree. And while I was going for the degree, I first worked in the banking industry. This was like right before I got married. And while I was working there, pursuing my degree, an opportunity opened up for a position in city government as a legislative assistant for who was then an alderman who went on to become the common council president, a guy by the name of Willie Hines. And I was there, man, and it was at City Hall that I really began to see, okay, it's a whole lot going on. I got a chance to get behind the scenes in the city's, goings on, got a chance to meet a lot of people in the private sector and really just broaden my horizons as a professional in terms of helping to shape legislation, be a de facto advisor to the common council president, get a chance to sit in, some of the backroom conversations of legislation that's being passed, and got a chance just to meet a whole lot of people and really kind of broaden my horizons as it relates to representing the office at, quasi-judicial hearings and committee hearings, going to press conferences, speaking on behalf of the office. And from there, man, things just kind of took off from there.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And so leaving the city, what was the next step? And then where are you now?
Yeah, leaving the city, while I was there was, I'm taking a step back. When I was in high school, up until the West, there was a teacher there by the name, I want to say Miss Eichenberger. She was a history teacher. She was really, really fancy, would wear, really fancy clothes, little scarves. She was fresh. She would go on vacations to Europe and stuff. But a lot of students didn't really like her because she was, kind of pompous and she didn't take no stuff. And I remember one day we were given a book report in history class, and I had given a report, and I was just, read the book, get a report, talk about some of the highlights of it or whatever. And while I was giving the report, I guess the class was really giving me some great feedback. A couple of things I said, wasn't even trying to make a joke. They laughed at or whatever. This is really, really engaging. So at the end of my report, you had to get, back in them days, you had to get up in front of the class and say, hey, my book was so-and-so and so-and-so. Here's my report. Blah, 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 blah. So after class, I was leaving out, and I remember her calling me, Tim. I was kind of halfway down the hall. And when I turned around, I'm thinking, okay, now what did I do? Because I don't want to be getting in trouble. So what she wanted to talk to me about? I ain't do nothing wrong. She said, come here for a second. And she was like, hey, have you ever thought about what you're going to do, professionally for a career when you become an adult? And I hadn't. And because of the whole racial thing, I'm like, why is she asking me that? So I gave the standard, smart kid, I'm going to become a lawyer, or thought about maybe a doctor or a lawyer, the standard little cliche answer.
Yeah.
And her face didn't move.
Yeah.
She like wasn't impressed with that. She said, have you ever thought about public speaking? Now at the time I had never heard of public speaking as a career.
Right.
And I thought she's just trying to stop me from being a lawyer. She's trying to help a black man down. She's like, have you ever thought about career as a public speaker? I said, well, no, actually, no, I haven't. She said, well, I think you should. I think that'd be a great career for you. And I was like, So while I had never heard of public speaking, I mean, you can talk for a living and get paid. I hadn't heard of that before. I didn't know about public relations and those kinds of things. And so I kept it in the back of my mind. Okay, mental note to self. Okay, I'm gonna keep this, So time went on. So after I left City Hall, while I was there was, a local public relations firm that did a lot of good work, worked with a lot of, the top businesses in the community, and they would invite the common council to some of their events, like Christmas events and all this kind of stuff. And you got a chance really to see how the private sector, kind of got down. And, because the elected official that I was working for couldn't make the events all the time because he had other stuff in the community to be doing. Like, hey, man, I can't make it to this. Can you go on behalf of the office? Sure. So I went on behalf of the office to these things, got a chance to establish a relationship with some of the staff that were at, this company and others. And when it came time to just kind of move on to maybe expand my horizons a bit, I called the owner of that firm up saying, well, hey, I've talked to, the elected official, trying to make a move. And I really think that, the public relations space is someplace I think I can kind of jam in. I've come to some of your events, see what you guys do. Y'all seem like a pretty good firm. I'd like to come, work with y'all. And he's like, oh, really? So, well, how does, the elected official feel about it? I said, hey, he's cool. You can call. You don't trust me, you can call him.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? I ain't, what I'm saying? We done rap. You know what I'm saying? I know y'all got a relationship, but this ain't got nothing to do with dude. This me and you now. But if you want to holler at him, here go the phone. His number is 286. You know what I'm saying? If you need proof. Anyway, short story shorter. So I went there, and it was there. Now, when I was at City Hall, I got a chance to. It was a fast-paced environment. Got a chance to see how things work behind the scenes. Got a chance to see how government directly impacts people's quality of life. When I left City Hall, I got a chance to see how the private sector really works. And while government is super duper important, don't sleep on the private sector. The private sector is a cornucopia of opportunity, lessons, and learning in how to persuade people to be on your side, the necessity of having customers or clients that will pay you for services rendered, and how to innovate when you are in a tough situation. And it was there at the PR firm. Miller Communications is the name of it. The owner of a guy named owner's name is Carl Miller. Kind of a legend. In the city, he was a press secretary for then Governor Marty Schreiber. Been a PR expert. For a long, long time. But it was there that I got a chance to get exposure to, high profile clients, working on client teams. And really what I worked in was commercial real estate and government relations, meaning that if a developer wanted to build a building and he needed some gap financing or tax incremental financing, he has a $50 million building. He only has 40 million of the 50 million. He needs 10 more million. He wants the city to give him that 10 million. Or loan it to him, and he'll pay him back, after some period of time, 10, 15, 20 years, and then the city get their money back. My job was to go and convince the city council that this project had merit and it was worthy of, these funds. So I got a chance to work with, Milwaukee Brewers, AT&T, Walgreens, some of the leading developers, Tan Low, Rick Barrett, Barry Mandel. I mean, the who's who, it really was really, really great there. Harley Davidson. I mean, it just, the list goes on. And it was from there that I got a chance to really expand my horizons, build my brand, if you will. and really get a chance to know that I can really jam at the top echelons of society, because our firm was a little bit smaller in terms of size. We only had about 16, 17 employees, and when you have a firm that is that size, you get a chance to work closely with the executive management of the clients. So most of my interactions were with company presidents, company CEOs, or their VPs of operation. And so you got a chance to be in the room with the decision makers. They got a chance to know you. You got a chance to establish relationships. And many of those folks, those CEOs, I still am in contact with today. And, go out and, have, coffee or whatever, kick it a little bit when it's not COVID-19 and you got a social distance, But it was really, really good. And that experience was great for me because it let me know that I can go to any environment now and deal with the top of the food chain because I've done it.
Very good, very good. Now, what about now? What are you doing now, and then your goals for the immediate future?
Yeah, right now, after I left Miller Communications, I launched Tim McMurtry International, which is a business development and coaching / consulting firm specializing in personal development, government affairs, and corporate and community relations. I do that. I'm building that business now, scaling it, and I also serve as I got a couple things going on. I also serve as the community relations and outreach manager for Employ Milwaukee. Employ Milwaukee is the workforce development outfit that services workforce development area number 2 in the state, which is all of Milwaukee County. Wisconsin has 11 workforce development boards. Milwaukee's is the largest of the 11. And essentially what we do as an organization is we check out the labor market and help hook up job seekers with job and career opportunities with employers. So we link individuals looking for employment and careers with employers and opportunities to upskill themselves and get into the areas that they feel most comfortable with. And so I'm doing those things concurrently. I also serve as associate pastor of a church, World Outreach Center, senior pastors Irvin and Melva Henderson. I also serve as the state director for Wisconsin for an organization called Christians United for Israel. It's the largest pro-Israel grassroots faith-based organization in the nation, numbering about 10 million members. And I also serve as the city area director for KUFI for Chicago, as well. So those are the hats. And I sit on a couple of civic boards of directors, Forest County Potawatomi Advisory Committee. I sit there. I'm also the chairman of the board for Young Life Milwaukee, which is a youth evangelistic organization. I also sit on the board of WOC and a couple other affiliations, man. So I got a couple things, going on. But going into 2021, I'll be launching a podcast really to amplify the Tim McMurtry international brand. And I also published author Morning Inspiration. This is a daily devotion for the workplace and entrepreneurs. So I have some other works that are going to be coming out from this author space, and I'll be doing some other workshops and different things like that that'll be online now that we're in this digital arena. So 2021, man, it's blowing up. It's blowing up. And I got a couple things, working with you on as well, so 2021, man. Yes, sir, Doc. Yes, sir. We turn
It's time to turn up. So
you know what I'm saying? I'm all the way up in 2021, Doc. All the way up.
That's right. That's right. That's brilliant, man. And I truly hope that the young people and adults that watch this, can be inspired by Tim McMurtry as well, and hopefully following some of your footsteps. I think you gave all of us a vast amount of information that a bunch of tokens that we can use in our game of life. We have to use them though. And put forth the effort. If you
exactly.
Game, you're giving us the coins. Now we just got to put them in and play. So. I'm very thankful for this. I appreciate this as always. Looking forward to doing more with you. And we'll be seeing more of Tim McMurtry International, both nationally and internationally.
It is, Doc. There, you better prophesy. Prophesy.
It's a lot. It's a lot. It's all going, man. But it's good, man. I really do thank you for this, Tim. And we'll be having you on soon.
Word up, brother. My pleasure. Thanks for having me. You guys be blessed. Happy New Year to you all, and the best is yet to come.
That's right. That's right. God bless you, my friend.
All right. God bless you too. Adios.